A rousing ovation. Hello to everybody who's watching this. Young, middle-aged, old, whatever. There's no such thing as old anyway. Young and middle-aged. So we are going to play some pieces for you, very varied pieces, very different pieces. And most of them are going to be duets for violin and cello. But I'm going to start with a solo piece, and if I play a solo piece, the obvious thing to play is Bach, because he wrote what is the Bible for us cellists, 6 suites for solo cello. So, I'm going to play a little double piece by him from his first suite for cello in G major, the 2 minuets. And in the first minuet you hear these happy people dancing away. And then I think in the second minuet you'll hear it's very different. It suddenly goes into the minor, and it's still people dancing, but maybe one of them is telling the other how much he loves them. And then it goes back to the happy extrovert bit. So there is some Bach for you. I don't know why I'm standing up, but I am. I hope you liked it. There's nothing I love more than Bach, and he's everything. I always think of him as this great, wise, perfect composer, which he certainly is, but he's also got such a sense of humour. He's such fun. He's everything, Bach. Anyway, now moving on to something else, I'm going to introduce my son's girlfriend, my son Gabriel, who's sort of the chief filmer today, and his girlfriend is Amarins, who's a wonderful violinist, leader of the Bergin quartet, and a soloist and everything really. It's very lucky for me she's living in this house, so we can legally play duets. So she's Amarins Wierdsma. Hello, Amarins. Let's see the response you have from your public. And we are going to play a piece, an arrangement I did. Sorry, this is a bit of an ego trip, this. First of all my book, then my arrangement. Sorry about that. But it's a piece by Hummel, Johann Nepomuk Hummel, and who's a very important composer, and also he knew many, many important people. He was Mozart's student, he was great friends with Beethoven and Schubert, and he was Haydn's successor in the Palace of Esterhazy, and he was an influence on Schumann and Chopin and Liszt, the composers who came later. Important figure. But one of his perhaps not most important pieces, but it's charming, is a set of variations on what was then God Save the King. All through my lifetime it's been God Save the Queen, and I'm sure yours too, but it was then God Save the King because there was a king, not a queen. And he wrote this set of variations for piano, and I looked at them and thought those would go for violin and cello. So I actually cut out 3 of the 6 variations, but we are going to play you the arrangement as it stands, and I hope you like it. You'll know the theme anyway, the tune. So that was Hummel's Variations on God Save the King. Actually, Beethoven also wrote Variations on God Save the King for piano. Maybe we should arrange those someday. Right, well, that's some music, and I gather that some of you have been sending lovely questions. And my girlfriend Joanna Bergin, who I'm also very lucky to have in the household, is going to read them to me. I haven't planned any answers, so it'll be all spontaneous.
So the first one is from Ashton Brown, student cellist and student composer, who says, "Hello, Mr. Isserlis. What is the best advice you think that you could give to a young cellist who wants to pursue a professional music career?"
I think there's many things here. I mean, first of all, I was just watching Nadia Boulanger, a very legendary teacher and pupil of Fauré herself, who said, you should only do music when you absolutely have to. And if you feel you don't really have to, then you should thank the Lord and do something else. But having said that, of course you've got to love music. You've really got to want to do it with all your heart. But also don't get stuck upon, a soloist career or whatever. There's so many different things people can do in music. You can be a soloist, you can be a chamber music player, you can join a quartet, which is just as high a calling, or you can join an orchestra, which is also absolutely essential, or equally inspiring and important is to be a teacher. So there's many, many things you can do with any instrument or voice. But you do need this love of music. And, and then you hope you're lucky and meet the right teacher and the right teachers and people. And anyway, if you don't go into the profession, we need, 100, 1,000 listeners to every musician. So the more you study music, the more you'll get out of it, whether you pursue it as a profession or not. So yeah, that's my advice really. Go for it.
And then from Matthew Moore, did you take your grade 8 as a child and did you get full marks?
Thank you, Matthew. Bring back painful memories. I took my grade, what did I take? My grade? I can't remember. I did take my grade 8, but many years after I'd taken the last grade. And I think I took grade 5 when I was 8. And then for what was called in those days O-levels, then became GCSEs, I needed grade 8, instrumental thing. So I took my grade 8. It was the same year I first played the Dvorak Concerto in public, gave my first recital, but actually I didn't get very good marks in my grade 8. I just got a distinction, but only just, and I was very sad about it. Sorry, it's gestures going on. I don't quite understand what they are.
Say you were 14 when you took it.
Oh yes,
because
sorry.
you took your O-levels when you were 14.
Okay, I'm going to do that question again then.
Oh, why not? You can...
No, I can do it.
Want to do it again? Okay. And from Matthew Moore, did you take your grade 8 as a child and did you get full marks?
Oh, Matthew, you hit a tender spot. No. Well, I did take my grade 8. I don't know if you can say I was a child. I think I'd taken my grade 5 when I was 8 or something. And then long break. I wasn't going to, because my main teacher, Jane Cowan, to whom I went at the age of 10, she didn't believe in grade exams. But then came my O-levels, which were the precursor of GCSEs, and I was 14. And it was the year I first played the Dvorak Concerto in public, and I gave a recital, and I went confidently in, needing this grade 8 for my O-level music. And I didn't get very good marks. I did get a distinction, but only just. Still hurts to this day. No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter.
And from Kirsty von Melez, who is the headmistress of Norwich School, what was the first piece that completely mesmerised you as a child or a teenager, which you thought, I have to play that one day?
Good question. Yes, it was the Dvorak Cello Concerto. I used to have this record of Rostropovich playing it with Adrian Bolt conducting, and I actually only heard the first movement. I didn't know the second and third movements because it was on different sides, of course. It was on these long playing records, so I listened to the first movement again and again and again. many, many years later, I was playing with Rostropovich conducting in San Francisco, and I told him this, and he just frowned and said, "No, my records with Talich and Ozawa are much better." So, sorry, it's not a very good imitation of him, but anyway, I loved it, and yes, I thought I must play this piece one day, and I did.
Another one? Okay.
And four.
From Ensemble plus Cello, Sexteto de Violoncello, Mexico.
Ooh.
Violoncello, yes. Who is the maker of your bow?
This one, nobody knows actually who made this bow. It's funny that it was sold to me as possibly being by Yuri. It's very famous. I'd never heard of him, but he's a very famous bow maker. But then eventually, the person who was selling it to me said, actually, we're not sure who made it. It might be, it's like in the style of Yuri, but it's actually probably much more modern. But it's beautiful. It was discovered apparently by a cellist called Maurice May, who was a very good friend of mine when I was growing up. Sadly, he died recently. But he discovered this bow, and it's sort of a mystery bow, so I like that. It's wonderful. And I hope to come to Mexico someday. I've never been there, and margaritas are my favourite drinks. Anyway, let's get on with some music now. Ravel. Maurice Ravel was a very dapper man who he was extraordinary. He could compose in any style. He composed some wonderful Jewish music, Spanish music, also he composed Bolero, which you may know. Not my favourite piece, but never mind. But he also wrote this sonata for violin and cello in memory of his friend Claude Debussy, who was the other most famous French composer of his generation. And he felt he was paring down music to its essentials by writing for just the two instruments. But actually, he makes them sound like an orchestra. This is an extraordinary piece, I think. And we're going to play the second movement. Très vif, very fast, very lively. Love that piece. It's great fun to play. Also quite jazz influenced. Ravel not only was influenced by jazz, he also influenced jazz. He's a clever chap. Oh, my music's falling over. This is a disaster. The end of life as we know it. But never mind. Alright, so some more. I've picked up all my music. Some more questions. Oh, I don't know why I'm standing up. I can sit down again.
Okay, this one is from Paul Titley, or Titley, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Is there any venue you haven't played yet that you hope to in the future?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I want to play more in South America. Maybe not at the moment. It's the epicenter of coronavirus, but I do want to go back. I've hardly played in South America, very little, occasionally in Brazil, but other places not since the early 90s. So I'd like to play more there. I suppose there's some exotic places I'd like to go to, yes. I've played most of the major cities. Never played in Pittsburgh for some reason. Or New Orleans for that matter. There's some American cities I haven't played, but no, mostly I've been invited to play in Hawaii. That sounds exciting. But South America, and I'm quite happy playing the places I play. You know, I play because I like to play places where I have friends, and you know, if I've been there before, it's more likely I'll have friends there. So, and Mexico, of course. I really want to go to Mexico, as well as the South American countries.
And from Maxime Calver, who is a 20-year-old cellist.
I know him.
BBC Young Musician Grand Finalist studying at the Royal College of Music, a Wycat artist and a Hattori Foundation scholar, he says, have recently discovered and despised all of my fingerings, bowings for Frank Sinatra. Any suggestions?
I know the feeling. I mean, I've done many editions, and the moment I look at them, my fingerings and bowings, I automatically change. I use something different. One is never happy with one's own. No, is one happy if one looks at photographs of oneself? But it's still useful because it gives you something to react against. You presumably had your reasons for putting those in, and now you've gone beyond those reasons, and that's a very useful record, a chart of your progress. Yeah, don't worry about that. But Frank's own bowings in that particular piece, his articulations are very interesting. It's worth it. You can get on IMSLP, you can get the manuscript and the first edition. I've spent quite a bit of time studying those. Very interesting.
Okay, there are two more questions left. Would you like to do that?
Sure.
From PGS.
PG Woodhouse.
Ooh, good beat.
PG
Are there composers who you love some days but don't on other occasions?
No, there's certainly music I want to listen to on some days and not on others, I suppose. Having said certainly, I'm not sure. No, I think if I love a composer, I would love Beethoven and Schumann and Fauré and Bach and Mozart and Haydn and Dvorak, etc. every day. I can't imagine. I mean, I suppose there are times I wouldn't want to listen to a Bruckner symphony, and times I would want to listen to a Bruckner symphony, but that's more a matter of time than mood.
Actually, the whole question that was edited from some days I think Bruckner's music is stolid and uninspiring.
Yeah, well, all right.
Today I thought it was sensuous, intelligent and powerful. Does Bruckner have this effect on you?
No, I think that says more about you than Bruckner, I have to say.
And the last question then is from Joe Taylor. Favourite book, movie, musical, cello piece, symphony, composer, food, place?
I've already lost it, hang on.
So
Book?
the first one's book.
Book, I don't know, the book I found most impossible to put down, which I don't think, doesn't mean it's the greatest book ever read, Armadale by Wilkie Collins. And my favourite children's book is probably Land of Green Ginger by Noel Langley, though only in the old edition. The new edition's a mess, but the old edition, wonderful.
And your favourite movie?
Night at the Opera, maybe, the Marx Brothers, comes straight to my mind. Casablanca, La Cajabole, Some Like It Hot. Yeah.
Your favourite musical?
Don't know about that one. I don't usually listen to music. I used to love the sound of music, but that was because I was in love with Julie Andrews.
And your favourite cello piece?
Difficult to say. Schumann Concerto is up there, Bach suites are up there, Beethoven sonatas are up there.
Symphony?
All the Beethovens, most of the Haydns, the late Mozarts, all the Schumanns, the later Schuberts. I don't know, there's a lot of great Brahms. Yeah, a lot of great symphonies, but the Schumann are the ones I feel I have to champion most, because people don't appreciate them.
And your favourite composer?
Oh, that's impossible. Bach is God. Beethoven represents all humanity. Schumann's my sort of best friend. Fauré I adore. It's impossible. It's like asking me who my favourite person is, which in this particular room at the moment would be a very awkward question to answer. You can't choose.
Luckily, the next question is your favourite food.
Anything spicy, Indian food I love. Though we had some nice Mexican food the other day.
And your favourite place?
Prussia Cove in Cornwall. I think that I can say that without too much thought. I mean, Sydney is probably my favourite city in the world, but Prussia Cove in Cornwall is very, 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 very special. We couldn't go there this year for the course, but it's glorious. But there are many glorious places. That's one good thing about being a musician. You travel and you get to see many wonderful places, like the insides of hotel rooms and restaurants and practice rooms. But also sometimes you go out and see wonderful things. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. And now we're going to finish with some more music, and this is actually jazz. It's by Matthias Scheiber, who was a Hungarian. He was actually a cellist as well as a composer, and he was working as a cellist on a cruise ship going around the Americas, and on board he met some jazz musicians, and that was introduced to jazz, and then became a professor of jazz in Frankfurt. And there was a rumour that he was in the South Sea Islands sort of researching folk music, and that he got eaten by some of the inhabitants whose music he was trying to record, but I don't think it's true. I think he died in a car crash, but I prefer the first story. And anyway, he wrote some, he called easy dances to teach students jazz, and they're for two violins, or two violins and piano, or violin and piano, or in this case, violin and cello. And we're going to play ragtime, slow fox, Charleston waltz, and foxtrot for you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope you liked it. Hope you like that music. Thank you, and thank you from my cello too. And from the violin. Thank you. Bye bye.